Good morning, Julia.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm wonderful today. How about you?
Excellent, thank you.
Well, happy belated Valentine's Day to everyone. There were so many courting couples out last night.
Nice.
It was so lovely to see it. And the flowers just kept being delivered to Lockerbie.
Lovely.
So, oh my gosh, it was so nice to know that our teachers are really appreciated by their significant others. So that was absolutely wonderful. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Really important radio show today that I was inspired by from a teacher training session that I have on a Wednesday with several members of staff between 2 and 3 every Wednesday afternoon. I was totally inspired by it, and I thought today I would have a wonderful Socratic radio show in which I just say, why? That's the way to get the brain thinking. So today is going to be a bit of Socratic questioning. And my first why is, why do you think that religion and education are words that fall into the same kind of context? Okay, now, any question?
I'm now trying to process this information.
Yeah.
Why do
religion and education?
I think it's because of the parameters that surround both of them.
Right.
The rules, really.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Okay.
Now, if I said to you, take religion and turn it into faith, and take education and turn it into learning, what would be that connection?
Well, it kind of opens up more possibilities. You're less directed by rules and more by, okay, what could possibly happen here?
We are actually being ruled now by your emotions.
Right.
By what's inside of you. So it's not an external, extrinsic, rule-driven, big organization.
Right.
It's now something that's personal. It's now personal, your personal faith and your personal learning. So we tend to talk a lot about education when really we should be talking a whole lot about learning. We talk a lot about religion when what we should be really talking about is our faith. So when we're looking at something like our white paper on education, which is the most fabulous document that our Ministry of Education had written some years ago, there is the whole mantra of this document, the ethos of it is that every child matters. Every single child in our education system in Barbados matters. Now, in the USA, they have the equivalent, and it's no child left behind. So what I started off by showing my teachers yesterday was a TED Talk by this wonderful guy called Ken Robinson. And in it, he was talking about education's Death Valley. And he started off by talking that, in America, their education secretary, they're sort of living the life that no child gets left behind. And he says it's sort of ironic because every child gets left behind. How do they get left behind? They get left behind because they are just a number on a long list of 3,000 students at a school. They get left behind because there are 40 kids in a classroom. They get left behind because their scores don't matter to anyone bar the child themselves. And they get left behind. And here in Barbados as well, you have to realize education and health are probably our most challenging ministries in our government. And they are the most important to the people. Every child does matter. And parents, you got to get involved because you got to have your voice heard because your child does matter. So at Lockerbie, why do we do it how we do it? The simple reason is that small classrooms, ongoing teacher training, having very specialized professionals on staff, whether you're talking about an educational psychologist or an occupational therapist or a speech and language therapist or remedial teachers or whatever, it doesn't mean that you have differently able students in every classroom. It doesn't mean that you have children with dyslexia or dyspraxia or whatever in every classroom. It doesn't mean that you have children who are going through emotional crises in every classroom. It just means that team of professionals forms part of your staff who then become a multi-sensory basis on which learning becomes meaningful. So that's why Lockerbie does what it does. That's the big why. Why is it then that education is an expense, but learning is an investment? Why should you invest? Why should you invest in somewhere like Lockerbie? Because if you're going to a school where your child's one of 40, your child is an expense. And to a large extent, depending on whatever your child's needs are, your child might very well be an inconvenience to his or her teachers. So why do you need to actually invest? Well, why do you build a house? Okay, now remember we were talking last week about you and your brother building a house?
Oh, yes.
Why do you build a house? Because a house is an investment. So that's the analogy I want to use today. Building your child's future is like building a house. Why do you choose to build a house? Because you need security that you can actually control. If you're renting, your landlord may or may not have burglar bars. You need permanence. You need there to be financial equity at the end of 20 years in which you've been actually paying for your house. And you know what? You can't pull your money out of your pocket like you do for the electricity bill and build a house with it. You have to go about looking at how you're going to fund this investment, because this investment is permanent. It is multifunctional. It has the ability to grow. It has the ability to stretch from just two people to a family of two or a family of four or a grandparent who's coming in to actually live there. You know, it has the ability to stretch. And not only does an investment hold its value, it actually appreciates in value. So yes, you take out a mortgage for far more than you can afford, just like you would take out a loan for an educational, for a learning investment. But what happens is that 5-10 years down the line, that loan, that amount, which seems so big at the beginning, is insignificant because of the return that you've got back because of the increase in value. So why don't you just pay rent? Because it doesn't make sense. It's a poor investment. You know, you might say you can't afford it. There are ways to afford it. Find two other girls who are single girls. If you're a single girl and you renting and you realize that you're throwing away $1,200 a month, you know, 3 or 4 of you together sharing a house and having a legal relationship whereby you can sell your share to someone else in 5 years' time or whatever the case may be, it makes far more sense to take your money and invest it than just to say goodbye to it like you do with the water bill. You know, learning is not a very sound expense, but it is a very, very good investment. So I want to use that analogy today. If you're going to pay now, you're going to enjoy it later. But if you're not going to invest now, there's not going to be anything later on to actually benefit from. And that's why Lockerbie College was actually started. Because I had a child who was at a school, and get this math, 100% of the expense of those school fees was being wasted. 100% of the expense of those school fees was being wasted. There was no meaningful learning going on. My child did not matter. My child was being left behind. I had no control of teachers who did not show up. I had no control of teachers who had no up-to-date training. I had no control of anyone. I begged and begged, read my child's file, see what my child's about. No. Please put my child in the front of the classroom. No, we can't put all 32 in front of the teacher. Seriously, my child's one of 32. My child was getting detentions, was getting punishment for work that my child didn't understand. Why didn't my child understand? Because no meaningful learning was taking place. And I can honestly tell you that, yeah, I was saving money. I wasn't investing in any great Lockerbie because there was none then. I was paying an expense like an electricity bill or a water bill, and 100% of it was completely wasted. And I knew it. Deep down in my gut, I knew it, that there would be a fallout from this. And the fallout was going to be my child's future. So something had to be done. Because your child's future is the house that you're investing in building. Now, let's talk about what you need to build a house, apart from investment capital. Let's talk about what you need to build a house, because this is what you need to build learning. And this is what my training with my teachers was about yesterday. I said to them, if you think you are on staff at Lockerbie to teach curriculum, you're wrong. Curriculum is just a byproduct. Curriculum is just what we use to do what we do. What we actually are here for is to teach skills, it's to teach sorting, and it's to teach linking. And that is the same as if you're building a house. Now think about it. If you're building a house, would you be going for a guy who does a little carpentry and does a little masonry, or would you be going for a competent mason and a competent carpenter? Because they're going to cost you more money. They're not going to be an expense. They're going to be an investment. And the fact is, you're going to go, even if you have to run over budget, you're going to be prepared to pay for that competency, because you know that the skill that they actually bring to the job is actually going to build you a house that's not going to fall down around your head. Your foundations are going to be solid. Your walls aren't going to crack. Your roof isn't going to leak. Your windows aren't going to be at cat a corner. Those skills are really, really important to you, because the skills of learning underpin how students think. So, yeah, we got to teach curriculum and we got to finish syllabus. But if we don't teach students how to think, what's the point of the curriculum? Because they don't know how to think about it. Sorting. This is another good one. If you have materials for your house, what are you going to do? Just have them everywhere? Just have them everywhere all over the site where you can't find them? You have to teach. You have to have things sorted. You have to have them sorted. Otherwise, you don't know where the nails are. You don't know where the clouts are. You don't know where the concrete might be out in all weathers. You know, the cement may be out in all weathers. Because in learning, sorting underpins where students start a task, how they actually work on that task, how they use the feedback that they get from the teacher on that task that they're actually completing, how they edit, how they correct, how they learn. All of that is underpinned by sorting. You have to literally help them sort their brain. Remember those days when a computer had to be defragged? That's the same as being sorted. You know, a brain is like a computer. It just puts things where it puts them. And then there comes a point where it has to be sorted. If Carter's or Marshall Trading or whoever it was came and dropped off their goods for your building site, wherever they wanted to go, what would happen? You couldn't actually start until you sorted. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time, right? Wasted expense. So, you know what? You got to invest in sorting. And the last thing is linking. Learning teaches linking because it tells you where to find where you put things. Students learn so much, or are supposed to learn so much in a day, but they have to be able to link what they learn to so many things, to prior knowledge, to vocabulary, to other subjects, to transfer knowledge from one thing to another. I'll never forget, once a couple of our students were in Spanish learning about a cathedral somewhere or the other in Spain, and all of a sudden one of them said, wait a minute, in geography we did this. We learned about this cathedral that was built entirely of salt. Yeah, it was in Spain. Yeah, we know exactly what you're talking about. That's linking. That's what you get when you come to Lockerbie. If you want to pay rent and pay an expense, you need to stay exactly where you are, and your child's future is going to end up having had a lot of money spent on it as an expense, but nothing to show for it because they'll never own that house. A lot of people say, yeah, if only I could afford Lockerbie. My thing is, you know what? If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Because the big question is, why do you think you can't afford Lockerbie? Why do you think you shouldn't afford Lockerbie for your child? Things are done very, very differently, and they're done very differently for a reason. This is your child's future. If it was your child's health, believe me, you would want to make a very good investment. You wouldn't put on a bandage on a child who needed surgery. So there are a lot of analogies and a lot of serious talking that's going on today. Hopefully it's let you realize how serious our teacher training sessions are every Wednesday. and we have that wonderful opportunity to share ideas and so on. If any parents listening would like the parent equivalent of our teacher training sessions, we need to get at least 10 parents. So we're not going to do it for 2 or 3, but we will put your name on a list. If you're interested in learning how to help your child and how to make an investment in your child's future through investing in learning rather than in the expense of education, give us a call, 435-3069, and we would love to talk to you. Have a wonderful week, everyone.